Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. I recently got a letter from one of these biracial Afro-American Negroes who seems to have taken some offense regarding my video on biracial race hustlers. And I'm going to give this biracial Afro-American Negro the response he requested in this video as I deconstruct all of the points he makes in his email to me. And I'm going to deconstruct those points as I read this letter, a letter that I want to share with you, my viewers. Now, this letter starts as such. He says, "Mr. James, my name is blank, I'm biracial, and today I saw your YouTube video regarding biracial race hustlers proclaiming Jesse Williams, Halle Berry, and Obama to be. One slight difference between them and I was that my white father was absent and I was raised by my black mother and 4 siblings. And there you are quite wrong, because just like your messy Jesse, your Halle Berry, and your Obama, you were raised by a single mother. Because in every case of a lot of these biracial race hustlers, they were raised in single mother households, either by their white mother or by their black mother. And in the case of your messy Jesse Williams, your Halle Berry, and your Barack Obama, they were all raised by their white single mothers. And because they were raised by their white single mothers, this is where they learned how to become your biracial race hustlers, because that white woman was their first teacher of culture. And as their first teacher of culture, they taught them the white supremacist culture of America, whereas you learned the black feminist culture from your black mother. So that's the only slight difference that you two guys have. But at the end of the day, you were not raised by a father, and because you did not have a father in your life, you cannot really see the big picture or think critically to see how these biracial people are hustling the black community, nor can you really understand how these biracial people go out here and take advantage of gullible black people who look at their crystal blue eyes and their creamy white skin, and how they are spellbound by that. And that's why they follow their lead, because they see their lighter skin and believe that because they are closer to white, that their words have more validation than that of a full black person. Now, this individual goes on to say, your commentary is interesting because you speculated so much to be true, but I'm certain you haven't spoken to these individuals personally or observed their daily activities where you would gather insight into their motivations for becoming a social activist. Well, in actuality, I have studied many of these individuals, and before I make any video regarding any individual like your Jesse Williams, your Halle Berry, your Barack Obama, or your Colin Kaepernick, I do extensive research into those individuals' backgrounds. I read numerous articles, and I read into their backgrounds, and I know extensively about their backgrounds, because in the case of people like your Halle Berry and your Barack Obama and your Jesse Williams, I have done my research on those individuals. So that's where you're wrong right there, talking about I'm speculating on those individuals when I am making commentary on known facts regarding their behavior, known facts regarding their history, and known facts regarding their actions. Now, this individual goes on to say, in that sense, you're no different than Rush Limbaugh or any other right-wing personality that offers opinions based on speculation. Now, I am no different than them. I have a right to express an opinion. And when it comes down to opinions, my opinion isn't the only opinion. But I am not like Rush Limbaugh. I am not offering a right-wing observation. I am offering my observation. Now, when it comes down to my political affiliation, I have no political affiliation to any left or right. I make my own decisions based on observable reality. I do not support either political party, so that straw man argument doesn't really work here, because you're sitting there thinking that I'm some sort of right-wing guy, when in actuality, I am a man who makes an observation about observable reality. I draw my conclusions regarding the arguments either side presents, and I make my conclusions based on those facts presented to me. I make no affiliation to any political party because, as I stated in a previous video, none of the above 2016, I do not support either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I support what I believe to be my moral position, and in my moral position, I see these biracial people, your Jesse Williams, your Halle Berrys, and your Barack Obamas, and even your Colin Kaepernicks, as race hustlers. Now, they go on to say, I personally challenge you to provide proof of them attempting to play and betray the black community. Now, in that video, I made numerous points where I showed how these biracial race hustlers were playing and betraying the black community, and I will do so again right here. Now, a couple of years ago, your Jesse Williams was an actor on Grey's Anatomy, and your BET decided to give your Jesse Williams a BET award for his so-called humanitarian efforts. Now, before your Jesse Williams was a big-time actor on your Grey's Anatomy, your Jesse Williams fancied himself a community activist. But your Jesse Williams was only doing this so he could have a background to sell himself to the black community, and he wanted to use the black community as a springboard to elevate himself. And with that BET award, once he received that BET award, he had elevated himself to another level past television, and he thought he had arrived. And once he thought he had arrived, he thought he could just go out here and abandon the very black community that supported him. So your Jesse Williams decided to divorce his white wife, and that, not his white wife, his black wife, because at the time he had a black wife, and he decided to divorce the black wife who he had 2 children with, and he then decided to get involved with a white woman, Minka Kelly, because your Jesse Williams thought he was going to become the next Denzel Washington, and he thought he was going to use his crystal blue eyes and his creamy white skin to elevate his social status to a mainstream star position. However, what happened after that was he betrayed the black community, he lost his support, and then he wound up in a hot mess. And right now, your Jesse Williams, after he betrayed the black community, now is seen as an enemy of the black community because he abandoned his black wife and his 2 children to have that affair with Minka Kelly. And that was proof right there of your Jesse Williams trying to play the black community and betray the black community. Now I'm going to give you an example of how your Halle Berry played and betrayed the black community. Now your Halle Berry, over the course of the 1990s, got her star elevated primarily through black films by directors like your Spike Lee and many others. And if it wasn't for black filmmakers who made films like your Boomerang, which the Hudlin brothers made, your Jungle Fever, which Spike Lee made, and your Strictly Business and many other black films, your Halle Berry would not be known by anybody in any part of Hollywood, because if it wasn't for those black producers elevating your Halle Berry and giving her those lead roles, she would not have the platform to rise to go and star in later films like Your Executive Decision and The Flintstones and many other mainstream films. And as she continued to rise in Hollywood and become this mainstream star, she then made an effort to compromise herself after she got this role in Swordfish. Now, this film, Swordfish, your Halle Berry decided that she was going to go topless in this movie, and she did that as a way to try to elevate herself. And then later on, she then decided to star in Lee Daniels' Monsters Ball, a film that featured a graphic sex scene between her and Billy Bob Thornton. And after she did that film, which everybody saw was degrading to black women and totally tarnished the black female image, she got an Oscar for this. And the reason why she got that Oscar was because she wanted to elevate herself to another level and at the black community's expense by destroying the image of the black woman. And she got her Oscar on the backs of black people by destroying the very image of black women. Because thanks to your Halle Berry participating in Monsters Ball, it opened the door for the changing of the black image from the professional black woman we used to get with roles like Joan Clayton and Claire Huxtable and many other respectable black female roles like we used to see, like the Black Girl Next Door. Instead of us getting those roles, what happened was Halle Berry opened the door for the return of the image of the black Jezebel. And because she opened the door for the image of the black Jezebel, that's why we have these debaucherous and lewd images of black women, which breathe brand new life into old stereotypes from the 1930s. And these images are so disgusting that it's not funny, because thanks to Halle Berry betraying the black community, this is what opened the door for your twerkers. This is what opened the door for your Instagram thought models. This is what opened the door for all of these disgusting images in many of those magazines like Smooth and King. And it also opened the door, again, for your ghetto gaggers, a completely debaucherous and disgusting website where white men humiliate and degrade black women as they participate in deviant sex acts. And it also opened the door for every little girl to think that this image of a black woman is the standard, and that's how she played and betrayed the black community. Because as long as she got her Oscar at the expense of the black female image, she was content. And as long as she could go out here and have her Oscar and her career at the expense of the black female image, that's all that mattered to her. And as she got her Oscar and then had her relationships with white men, she slapped the black community in the face and literally insulted it, because after she got her Oscar, she didn't want anything to do with black people. Because once she thought the door was open for her by her Oscar, she only wanted to be with white people. So that's how she played and betrayed the black community. Now, if you want to know how your President Barack Obama betrayed the black community, I'll break that down for you too. Now, back in 2008, your Barack Obama, he went out here with the endorsement of Oprah Winfrey to run for president of the United States. And Barack Obama ran on all of these black platforms and went to all of these black communities promising black people hope and change. And he made it a priority to come to black communities talking about hope and change. And he advertised himself as the first black president. And after he won the election in 2008, he did absolutely nothing for the black community. In fact, as he was going out here and lobbying for white women and gays and Hispanics, he then, over the course of 8 years, went out of his way to admonish black people, and he went out of his way to criticize and deride black people, a voting bloc that voted for him 98% in 2008 and 92% in 2012. A voting bloc that was promised hope and change first, but got absolutely nothing from the so-called first black president, who was nothing more than a biracial man who literally was a chocolate-covered white man, because once you peel back the facade of your Barack Obama, you'll see that before he married Michelle, he was heavily involved with white women, and again, his first teacher of culture was a white woman. So your Barack Obama, he was black on the outside and promoted being black, but he was out to support anybody but being black. So that's how your Barack Obama went out here and he played and betrayed the black community. He used the black community to get the black vote, and then at the end of the day, he did absolutely nothing for the black people who he promised hope and change. And thanks to your Barack Obama, this is why your Hillary Clinton lost in 2016 to Donald Trump, because many of the black people who had been alienated by Barack Obama's policies either voted for Donald Trump, like those 7% of black men, or many just decided to stay home, like for 2016 and again in 2018. And that's all because your Barack Obama, who promised hope and change to black people, didn't deliver any hope and change to black people. So that's how all of those individuals played and betrayed the black community, just like your Colin Kaepernick, another biracial race hustler, played and betrayed the black community. Because your Colin Kaepernick, he was one of these NFL players, and before he did his protest, he was out here adopted by a white family, and he had white girlfriends. But the minute his NFL career starts to decline, that's when your Colin Kaepernick wants to start growing out his hair and having an afro, and that's when he wants to start going and getting a knee, because your Colin Kaepernick, what he wanted to do was play and betray the black community by saying that he was some sort of pro-black and was fighting against police brutality, when in actuality he was trying to get traded to another team, and he was trying to get a better contract for himself, even though when we look at your Colin Kaepernick stats, your Colin Kaepernick stats as a player clearly were in decline. And that's how your Colin Kaepernick played and betrayed the black community, because once he went pro-black, he was only doing it to get traded to another NFL team, but that blew up in his face, and the NFL balked at his attempt to try to play the black community. But sadly, a lot of black people continue to support your Colin Kaepernick, and your Colin Kaepernick, at the end of the day, because the NFL was hurting from the losses, Nike decided to give him $30 million, and he got a cash settlement. And the only reason why he got that $30 million from Nike was because Nike got caught in a police sting in Chicago, where they were trying to get black men arrested for putting these Air Jordans in a truck to bait them to get them arrested. So they wanted to deflect attention, so they gave Colin Kaepernick $30 million and made him the face of their campaign. And the only reason why they made Colin Kaepernick the face of their campaign was because they knew that most black people are spellbound, and when they see those crystal blue eyes and that creamy white skin from a biracial Afro-American Negro, the first thing they're going to do is follow in the footsteps like in a ragdoll dance in trance, because they are spellbound by seeing that light skin, and they'll follow that light-skinned person anywhere they go. And this person goes on to say, secondly, I found it very offensive that you stated the black community only follows them because of their creamy light skin, because black people are so gullible to be swayed by looks and not substance. I hate to break it to you, but that has been the case since the days of Jim Crow. Now, I urge you to go out here and read a couple of books that will show you the truth about how your biracial people have been used by white supremacists to be a talented 10th group. Because once you read these books, like Our Kind of People, and you read books like E. Franklin Fraser's Black Bourgeoisie, and you read books like W.E.B. Du Bois' Souls of Black Folk, and you read James Weldon Johnson's autobiography of an ex-colored man, you will understand how light-skinned people have been used as a buffer group for over a century, and how they have been used to sway the decisions of the black masses. Furthermore, I want you to go over to the Jim Crow Museum, and I want you to read about the paradigm of the tragic mulatto, because when I read that article on the tragic mulatto, it opened my eyes to the power of these light-skinned people that they use as buffers, because back during the days of Jim Crow, many of the people who were leaders over black movements like the NAACP were these biracial people like your Walter White, and people who were a part of that elite group. Because Walter White was one of the founders of the NAACP, and people like your Adam Clayton Powell, they were elected to political positions, and most of those people were put in those leadership positions because they were biracial, and they were white, they were half white, and because they were considered closer to white, many black people believed that they were better than themselves. And that is the sad but horrible truth, because when it comes down to a lot of black people, they are spellbound, and because they are spellbound, they see biracial people as somebody that is better than they are, and because they see them as better than they are, they want to follow their lead, and they covet their attention and their approval. And I used all of that research from those books to go in depth for a novel I wrote about a character who was biracial in a book called Spellbound. And in the book Spellbound, I talk about how this Matilda Crowley character has to deal with the struggles of being biracial and dealing with black people who want to project ideas about her and want to have her be a part of their fantasies and want her to fit into their world. And on one side, she has these black males who covet her as a sexual object, and then on the other side, she has black females who are jealous of her and want to destroy her because she has this light skin that they covet and want. And this is just how it is in the black community. I'm not just coming from the research I have done and from things I have seen. I am also coming from many biracial people who I have had the pleasure of talking to online, who have told me all about their experiences and told me about the things that they go through. So I'm not just coming from one set of sources. I have 3 or 4 sets of sources. So what you don't understand is that this is just how it is, and I have a whole bunch of facts to back up my arguments, because I don't present an argument unless I have facts to back it up. Now, this individual goes on to say, I believe you're being followed because your rallying cry to dislike biracial people, and if I'm wrong, please produce contrary evidence. Well, I can produce contrary evidence, like my novel Spellbound, where I talk about the darker shade of black with this biracial Matilda Crowley character, and I talk about her struggles in books like Spinsterella and books like the legendary Mad Matilda. And I am not trying to make a rallying cry to dislike biracial people, because, again, I have biracial people who come to my channel, come to my Facebook, and they understand that I'm not rallying people to dislike biracial people. In fact, I'm trying to present a balanced picture of biracial people so that they won't fall into stereotypes that lead them down the road to the tragic mulatto paradigm. And that's something I talk about in depth in my novel Spellbound, because the Matilda Crowley character sees the dark road that is ahead of her and is looking for a way to get off that dark road from the tragic mulatto, because I understand the stereotypes, because I've listened to people talk about those stereotypes, people like your Persia White who talked about them, and many other biracial people who I have talked to on my blog and on my channel who have dealt with this. And they don't want, the reason why I'm trying to talk to them is because I want them to understand that biracial race hustlers don't make things good for them either. Because when it comes down to biracial race hustlers, what they want to do is they want to be a talented 10th buffer group between white people and black people. And what they want to do is get their needs met by being that buffer group between black people and white people. And as a buffer group, what they want to do is, again, go out here and play the victim by representing black people, and then after they get what they want, they then abandon the black community, and they exploit the black community by using their skin tone, because white people find them more attractive and more willing to assimilate. So they can go out here and say that someone like a Barack Obama is the first black president, even though he is technically biracial, but because he has a black father, they will say that he is black, just like they will say Halle Berry is the first black actress to win Best Actress, even though she comes from a white mother. And your Jesse Williams will come out here with his BET award saying that he's here for the black community, but none of these individuals ever want to come back to the same black community they got most of their support from. What they will do is abandon the black masses in the community. They will abandon the biracial people in the community. And what's even worse is that these individuals, as they are trying to represent black, what they will do is they won't deal with the struggles that biracial people go through, something I talked about in numerous videos when I was promoting the book Spellbound and the books of the Spinsterella trilogy. They won't talk about the struggles of being between the worlds of black and white. They won't talk about the issues of the worlds between black and white, and they won't sit there and deal with these issues, because for them, it's about them getting their needs met by making themselves out to be the representatives of black people. Meanwhile, they abandon both black people and biracial people at the same time, not presenting the issues of both in a constructive manner or presenting a discourse towards helping both groups move forward. It's all about them being the wall between the black community and white people, and them getting the crumbs from the table for themselves at the expense of both black issues and those of biracial issues. Because the thing that most people don't want to talk about is how biracial issues never get talked about, or how biracial issues never get discussed. Because according to them, you're black, but they don't want to talk about the things that biracial people deal with. Now, I talk about it in books like Spellbound and Legendary Mad Matilda and Spinsterella, but they won't talk about it at all. They'll sit there and say that you're black, get black things from the black community, and get points for being black, but then not deal with the struggles of either black people or biracial people. And he goes on to say, what you may not know is that biracial people are viewed as N-words and nursery, and maybe even more, because they hate N-words and N-word lovers at the same time. Now, I am well aware of how your biracial people are viewed, and I understand how they are being manipulated by both white people and some of your people in the black community. Now, your white people, they will go out here and they will use biracial people as a buffer to be able to create this covert contract where they can say they hired a black person or they have elevated a black person, when in actuality they have elevated someone who has the same values but a different skin tone. And I'm well aware of how black people use biracial people by elevating them, because a lot of people have a covert contract where they believe that if they go out here and get involved with this black person, this biracial person, it will elevate their status as a black person. And that has to do, again, with the house slave and the field slave, because usually the biracial person was made into the house slave. And these Negroes, they believe that if they get involved with a light-skinned person or a biracial person, they will elevate their social status as well. And I know that there is a love-hate codependent relationship, and your response shows how you just don't really understand how these dynamics work. Now, I understand how these dynamics work, and that's why I made the video talking about these biracial race hustlers, because I want you to understand how you are being taken advantage by these individuals, and how these individuals do not have your best interests at heart, because they will go out here trying to represent black, but at the end of the day, they want to go home back to white. And because they want to go home to white, they don't care about the needs of black people, nor do they care about the needs of biracial people, and they hustle to get those crumbs from the master's table in the same way the house slave hustled to get those crumbs from the master's table. And what they want to do is create a wall that keeps brothers like you from coming in, because they don't want you to come in, because they want that spot to be theirs. They want that spot to be special. And that's what these biracial race hustlers do. They use their skin tone as a way to get attention from white people. They use their platform to get attention from white people. And then once they get their attention from white people and they get their validation and approval from white people, they walk away from both the black community and the biracial community, and they leave you guys alone because they have gotten their white validation, their white acceptance, and their white approval. Now, I hope this explains everything to you regarding these biracial race hustlers, because when it comes down to these biracial race hustlers, they make life hard for everybody, black people and biracial people, and they make life hard for everyone because they use the position of a victim to elevate themselves at people's expense, and they don't really bring back anything to the communities that supported them. People like Halle Berry, Jesse Williams, Barack Obama, and Colin Kaepernick, they always talk about how they're doing things to open doors and bring change, but at the end of the day, nothing changes for any of the brothers in the street, whether they be black or biracial, and that's something you need to really think about. Again, I urge you to pick up my book Spellbound, and I urge you to pick up the other books I talked about, E. Franklin Frazier's Black Bourgeoisie, James Weldon Johnson's autobiography of an ex-colored man, which is a part of 3 Negro classics, which includes The Souls of Black Folk, I forget, it was something of a slave, and the autobiography of an ex-colored man. I urge you to read the article on the Jim Crow Museum on the tragic mulatto, and I urge you to do research on the conditions of biracial leaders, people like your W.E.B. Du Bois, who was biracial, your Walter White, your Adam Clayton Powell. All of these people were leaders of black people during Jim Crow and during segregation, and they represented the black community as primarily our leaders during Jim Crow and segregation. So I'm not just coming from an opinion, I'm breaking down my opinion, which is an argument reinforced in facts, and I'm urging you to go out here and go find those facts, because I use those exact same facts to write Spellbound, and you're going to find that those same facts that I'm presenting here are the facts on how it is regarding these biracial race hustlers and how they use their light skin to exploit the black community. And enrich themselves at your expense, and how they put a divide between black people and biracial people. This is my response to your email, and I'm hoping you learned something from this response. If you want to learn more about biracial people's struggles, you can pick up Spellbound on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle and Smashwords, and I'm hoping you learned something about the struggles of biracial people, and you can learn something about the difference between a biracial person and a biracial race hustler. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.